If you're ready to buy or sell your home, then stop in at 4234 Market Street to let one of the agents at Howard Hanna Professionals help. Our friendly and knowledgeable agents can help you find the key to your dream home. Looking for a new career? Howard Hanna Professionals can help there too. Howard Hanna Professionals will assist new and experienced agents with the startup fees for an exciting career in real estate. Call Katrina Laurie at 814-726-2000 for more information.
Here at Casella, we make temporary dumpster rental easy, offering services that are perfect for construction, remodeling, special events, or other short-term projects. Casella dumpsters are available in a wide range of sizes to fit any job. Our dedicated customer service team will help you choose the right size container and service level for your project and schedule hassle-free removal based on your specific needs. The right size dumpster, when you want it, where you want it, removed when you say so.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode of Coffee and a Conversation. Brian Hagberg with you on your Daily Local. Our guest this week is Warren County School District Superintendent Gary Weber. And appropriate, we're at the higher education office with our education person today. And again, special thanks to Warren Forest Higher Education Council for letting us come in, use one of their classroom spaces to record this week's episode. And Gary, first of all, thanks for taking some time. And I know this is a little bit of your downtime that we're interrupting.
Yeah,
but,
no, it's all good. I'm happy to be here.
End of July, so you don't have much of that downtime left.
No, we're hopping. We're definitely hopping.
And so what is it, people talk all the time, teachers get summers off and all this stuff, but I mean, you guys are constantly, especially at central office, I mean, you got to be doing stuff all summer long just to get ready for when fall starts. I said that probably twice this week because I've been in a meeting every day, most of the day, of some sort, planning for this coming school year. And it's really wrapping up last year's information and then really gearing up for this year. So yesterday we were working on, we had our meetings to do education reform. So we're going back to kind of a model of education reform and goal action plan. So that took up the morning. And then in as part of that process, then we begin talking about professional development. So you have to plan for, 5 or 6 professional development days ahead of time. And so what are we going to be planning for the teachers when they get back? So we're already gearing up and excited and ready to roll out some stuff for people. And it's a good time, but it is a very, very busy time trying to nail down staffing, really getting ready for all of that, the budget. And then we've got a lot coming up at the board meetings that we're getting information for the board members. So it's been a busy time. Yeah. And so you mentioned that you're planning the professional development days and stuff. And when you look at the school calendar, do you have like a process or a formula that you look at and say, we want to try to build these in so it falls on like a natural long weekend, or how does that process work?
Yeah, I think like we've tried to do professional development on days that where parents would traditionally be off, maybe for a holiday that we don't necessarily recognize. The kids are off and we can bring the teachers in and do professional development. So we try and do that. We start the school year always with professional development when we bring the teachers back. And if you look at our school calendar, you've seen where kids have come back for either 3 days, then 4 days and 5 days, or 4 days and 5 days. So we try and ease them in. So we do professional development. We stagger it that way. So we have a start date. Is it a full week for children?
Right. And so if I looked at my calendar the other day, which I think I did, we're starting on a Tuesday this year, so it'll be a 4-day, and then and that goes right into Labor Day, which is another 4-day.
So we went 4, 4, and then 5 this year. Yeah.
And so I know like when I was in school, it was always the 4, 4, and then you were off and running. But I know in more recent years, there's been some that have been 3-day weeks and then 4 days. And how does that kind of come about, and what's the driving factor behind that?
That really started with construction. So that was the construction that really drove our start dates. And at times we needed to push back the start date as far as possible to give the summertime to the construction companies to be able to get as much work done as they could possibly get. So we tethered with Labor Day. So we would do a 3-day week coming back right before Labor Day, and then we go 3, 4, and then 5. So this is a year where we're starting early. Every so often you get a calendar where it just happens that way. So we're actually coming back. I think the teachers start on the 22nd, if I'm not mistaken. So it's an early start.
Well, speaking of construction, I drove by. It looks like they're getting fairly close down at Beatty with that paving project. So be good to have that finished here shortly.
Yeah, that's always one where we have all of our summer programming at Beatty.
Yeah.
So we have to do a lot of maneuvering and making sure people can get in, have access to park and get through. And so we had to work with the paving companies. And then also too, you have houses on the backside of Beatty. So when we're doing paving projects, there's a possibility of blocking off people's garages and stuff. So yeah, there's a lot of maneuvering that takes place when you do that, and a lot of meetings to make sure everybody's on the same page.
Yeah. It's not like just, hey, call up the paving company. Hey, come down and do our driveway tomorrow.
Yeah, that's right. These are planned months in advance.
And so speaking of months, we're what is this, about 4 months into your tenure as
March, April, May,
right?
June.
I think I'm
I'm 4.5 months. Yeah,
it's
going fast.
Yeah, but so how is it? How has it been? So, all it's cracked up to be, everything you imagined it would be?
Well, I would say this: there are two factors to that. First of all, Amy Stewart did a remarkable job with transition. So I don't care whether it was me or anybody else would have come in. The transition was so seamless on my end that I had already started picking up some things, and then she just had it all set up. You can't imagine the litany of passwords. Just
I was just going to say, she got a bunch of Post-its right on the side of the computer.
No. We work with the board secretary and make sure that all of those are updated, because those have to go to all the state sites. So whether it's PDE or Edna or all these different sites that we use, and the amount of things that have to be approved on a regular basis, those all have to be updated, or I can't approve, like comprehensive plans, title plans, things like that. So we've had some headaches in terms of getting those fixed.
Right.
But Mrs. Stewart did a remarkable job of making sure that the transition was as seamless as possible for me to walk in. Also, too, I had been doing quite a bit of the stuff leading up to that. So she really allowed me to get in and really start working on some of those things before we got to where I actually moved into her office. So from that standpoint, it was really an easy transition for me. I'd been working with the board, and just the nature of the position that I was in, it made it friendly for me to be able to do that. But it has definitely been, it's definitely been interesting, just because we have new board members. So you're working with a new crew of people, and at the same time learning new things. So it's been a busy transition. I'll say that.
Yeah. Because you've got what, four board members that have only been on the board
Five.
Yeah. Oh, right. 5. Yeah. They've only been on 3 months.
Yeah.
Longer. So you kind of all are learning on the fly, as it were. Like you said, in your previous position, you were at board meetings regularly anyway.
Sure.
But, and I'm sure, like you said, being where you were, you would have been helping her get some of that transition stuff settled anyway. But then, once it became clear that you were going to be the next superintendent, I'm sure that just, okay, well, now I'm really going to show you, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Because there were things that I really didn't want to start, without having that approval.
Right. Yeah.
Just to make sure that and I didn't want to jinx myself either.
Right.
So, you don't want to don't want to put yourself in a position where you're just assuming that can happen, because things can change.
Yeah.
And that's okay. So I really just I'd accepted the role of, if somebody else was coming into the position, I would be the person helping them transition.
Right.
So I was taking on a lot of the knowledge base so that I could help that person, whoever it was. And so if it wasn't me, I was very willing to come in and help that person. And, that's the nature of what we do. At the end of the day, we just want to be successful.
Right.
So whoever sits in the seat, they've got to have a solid team behind them, really helping them. Otherwise, it can create a really nasty environment.
Right.
And I just didn't want that for anybody, whether it's me or somebody else.
Well, and if it had been, somebody from outside or whatever come in and there's not that smooth transition in place, and they stumble out of the blocks, and it ends up leading to failure, right? I mean, it's not necessarily just on them.
Yeah,
That
right.
impacts
It trickles
everybody else. Yeah.
Yeah, it starts at the top, man, and it really trickles down. And the hard part too is that we're in an area where the historical knowledge of this area and what we've done over the last 20 years is really incredible. But knowing that history and not stepping in anything is also a tricky situation for people. So if anybody coming in from the outside, you have to know the history.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because there are dynamics at play here, and they have been at play for like even longer than that.
Yeah.
20 years. I mean, I don't think it's any secret that there's some animosity, perceived or otherwise, among different attendance areas and municipalities and whatever throughout the county. And so somebody who's not familiar with any of that, they come in and look at something and go, oh, why don't you just do X, Y, Z? And then, next thing you know, they present that and there's, 300 people at a board meeting, all, torches and pitchforks.
Yeah. And you know what? And I'll say this, I love community involvement. I have no issue with people coming to the meetings. I have no issue with people being involved in education.
And they should be. You should be. Go to the meetings.
As long as it's focused on education. Yeah. That's where it gets frustrating because, we have a very focused job to do and to get kids educated every single day. And when our eye is taken off of that mall, that's when I get frustrated. I try and, as a superintendent, that's what you try and take on. You try and allow everybody behind you to stay focused on what they're doing. And, but that can be the frustrating thing is the topics that you would get stuck on that really take your focus off of what you're trying to accomplish.
And so backtracking a little bit, what was it that made you want to assume this role? I mean, obviously you've been with the district for a long time. You've seen kind of everything that's been going on. How do you look at that and go, yes, I want to be the one that assumes kind of that mantle of leadership?
Well, I would say it this way. So the jobs that you do along the way kind of guide you into your next position. So having been a principal in different buildings in the district, having worked in different buildings in the district, having lived in different attendance areas, you get a really good feel for what's going on throughout the community. And so as I moved up through central office, I came in as a director of curriculum and instruction. So I really was able to do a lot for several years, 6 years, I think maybe 5 years in that position and really learn a ton. That position, the knowledge base for that position is huge. It's tremendous. Not that other positions aren't, but it's the spectrum's so wide on what you're trying to do from K to 12. So when Mrs. Stewart had taken on the superintendent role, the agreement was that I would take on human resources for her, and that kind of led me to a different path. So having picked up the human resources, then and keeping the career center, keeping athletics and co-curricular, some of those things that I was doing along with the HR and technology, because our job functions have changed over time. Like even when I was director of curriculum, I didn't start out with technology. I picked that up along the way. So really it covered the whole swath of what we do, except for the pupil services part.
Right.
And so when Mrs. Stewart was thinking about leaving or retiring, we'd always talked about that being the next natural step. But the important thing for me was that the people around me were supportive of me doing that. So having their support to go and do that was really what meant more to me. Then I knew that it was okay for me to do that. Because you don't want to. It's like forcing a square peg in a round hole if you're not the right person. So having the support of the people behind me was really important to me, and so knowing that I had that was really the next step. So Mrs. Stewart retired a little sooner than I anticipated, but that's okay. God bless her for the job she did, and she was in this position for 8 years. And I remember talking to, I believe it was John Grant, told me one time, the longest you can possibly stay as a superintendent is 10.
Right.
And that's just because at that point you've just made everybody angry.
Right.
Yeah. You have nobody left.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
just the natural decisions that you make, somebody tends to not be happy. So I thought it was just a natural progression for me.
I mean, it seems like you're always going to be in a position where, no matter what the decision or the direction is, somebody's not going to be happy about it. Right.
Yeah.
I mean, it's got to be finding that balance where, everybody's just happy enough that, you don't.
Yeah. I mean, we're in that position now. We've got some decisions we have to make. And I said from the very beginning, bringing people together with an understanding of the goal so that, some people are not going to be happy about the end result, but as long as we're trying to accomplish a goal and that we're focused on what's best for kids, we're going to do okay.
Yeah.
We'll be okay.
And I thought it was maybe underappreciated at one of the previous meetings where, again, we're talking about student population and number of schools and all that kind of stuff. But I think you'd made a comment of the one thing we don't need to do right now is go hire another consulting firm and have them come tell us the same thing that Strategy Solutions just told us a year ago.
Yeah.
And I think, and I'll admit that's probably some on me because we didn't report it emphatically enough, but I think that was underappreciated of an understanding of we don't need to reinvent the wheel with some of this. And
we have all the data at our fingertips.
Yeah.
I mean, and we've had so many studies done over the last 10 to 15 years that you can pull from those. They haven't changed. So when we went into the construction projects, the building specs are the same as they were. The data has definitely changed, and we'll have to update that, but we have it all at our fingertips.
Yeah.
So really, it's just, this comes down to the community coming together and making a solid decision. The board making a solid decision on what's best for kids and the future of the Warren County School District based on the data that's presented to them.
So obviously one of the biggest challenges that, as a district we're looking at is population decline. And that's not just, it's not specific to the district. Obviously this is a countywide thing. And as we saw from Mr. Kopko presented at Warren Works a couple of months ago, it's statewide.
Yeah.
A lot of counties, a lot of districts are facing this, very same problem.
Yeah.
Where, and looking at the district's enrollment numbers, I think our student population is down somewhere in the neighborhood of 40% just since 2000.
Yeah.
And so as a district, what are some things that you can do to, try to stem that flow and keep, because we hear from
how as a district we can increase population.
Well, I think so
I gotta be careful,
right? Yeah. Well, so I hear going to various municipal meetings and things, and some of those officials say one of the reasons when they find out people leave, one of the reasons they always say is, well, we weren't necessarily happy with the district or the way schools were doing or whatever. Are you able as a district to get with some of those leaders and get some of that feedback and take it, and then how do you use that to make the district itself more appealing and maybe make people, if they're going to leave, that's not one of the reasons?
Well, having 3 children who just graduated over the last 10 years, I would say this, it really comes down to the employment possibilities for the kids to be able to come back to. I don't care who it is. If you're willing to learn and you understand that process, you can go and do anything you want to do. So I don't necessarily buy that kids don't come back here because of what things that happened in high school or what they didn't receive in high school. I think it really comes down to what is available to them here in this community. I had one child that left and could have gone anywhere, but wanted to live here. So that's where she's at. And, but the scope of the employment possibilities for her certification or degree was very minimal. So it's a shallow pool, so to speak. So I think that I'm excited about Warren Works. I'm excited about some of the things that they're looking at to possibly bring employment to the area, because
Right.
I think that's how we get kids to stay and get them back. I don't want there's a huge population of our kids that come out of the career center and work in local industry and do those things, and that has been huge, and that has been a wonderful opportunity to see that transition and watch that happen. But we have to have skilled positions too.
Yeah.
And so seeing, well, I gotta be careful how I say that, because I don't.
Not that the kids coming out of the career center are unskilled.
Yeah.
Yes,
I don't mean it that. My dad was a welder, so
yeah.
I mean, I understand the skill involved in doing that.
White collar.
Yeah.
Right.
Bachelor level type jobs, and some of the certification area jobs that we can bring to the community. Those are going to bring some of our other kids back too. So I think we're doing a fantastic job with kids coming out and not taking on the burden of debt associated with higher education, and they're finding very meaningful jobs in the community, and those are skilled positions. So that's why be careful. But I think too, we have to bring an industry that will allow some of those other types of positions for kids. So I think that would help tremendously.
And so I know one of the previous board members, Joe Klosswell, used to say all the time, that the career center is that kind of shining star on the hill, and one of his big pushes was to try to figure out how to get the quote unquote traditional schools, the K through 12 and the high schools in particular, to replicate that success where we are seeing students not only go on to have successful careers, but doing it here. And I guess that's got to be the biggest kind of challenge, right? Is how do you look at that formula and say, how can we apply that to a standard academic curriculum that you don't have a whole lot of say so over?
That's correct.
Because you've got state and federal guidelines and things like that you have to follow.
So, what that really comes down to is what we call mastery learning. And the difference between when the kids go into the career center and go into the traditional classroom is we have a planned instruction that we have to follow in a classroom, and they're trying every day to get every kid to the same place.
Right. Yeah.
Where at the career center, you're coming in and working off a task grid, and those kids are checking off tasks. They're checking off certifications along the way. And so you might have a kid that goes this far into that vocation or certification area, and then you might have a kid that goes this far, and that's okay.
Right.
But they're checking off those tasks at their own ability levels and at their own pace, where we can't do that in a traditional classroom. It's very difficult.
Right.
So we would have to go back and say, okay, what's the base knowledge level that we want kids to achieve? And then what can we do along the way that gives opportunities? We did, out of our last ed reform that we did, one of the big goals was to bring in a career counselor, which we've been able to do. So the board approved that several years ago, and that's been a big win for us. So we've continued to work with high ed here on a lot of the career education programs that we have going on from K to 12, and having a career counselor that can dig in and do more with kids in terms of career pathways. That's going to be a big piece, because kids have to know what's out there, and they have to know, how to get to that point.
Yeah.
And so having somebody that's going to be able to help provide that knowledge is going to be really essential for us.
Does it become in some ways finding liaisons or reaching out to some of those local businesses and services that do have are in need of the bachelor level or specific certifications, and saying, hey, we need you to come talk to the kids and do, or just let them know that, hey, this is a viable career path that's not going to force them to go halfway across the country to find a decent job.
Sure, absolutely. So we've really, we're at the tip of the iceberg. We've done a really remarkable job. Bob Smith, the Career Center, working with Mr. Evers on the co-op program, the TANF program. They've seen tremendous success with kids being able to get out into the local industry and get experience, or get shadow opportunities where they can see what people do, and to choose that pathway. Because some kids, out of that, they may say, maybe this isn't what I need to do, and I need to shift gears and not do it at 25 years old.
Right. Yeah.
So that's been a really good opportunity. It's just taking that one step further and bringing it into regular ed, which is what we're kind of focusing on.
And do you have an opportunity to
interact much with other districts and look at some of the things that they're doing as far as preparing certain career paths. Like, for example, I know they just recently put in like a big media studio and things like that at the career center. And like when I graduated, right, the only kind of media opportunity was to whatever your high school newspaper was, and for us, I think ours came out maybe 3 times a year.
Yeah, right.
But to look at other districts and say, oh, they've got this kind of thing, or they've got this lab set up, or this equipment that are helping prepare kids for a variety of jobs in X field.
Yeah. So each one of our different central office positions has groups that they belong to within the IU. And then we go out to state conferences, which are tremendous at providing those same opportunities. We just had a group that went out to Denver for STEM, and I said to Mr. Meinweiser as he was moving into my position, taking over technology, I said, you have to go to this conference. Last year was in Philadelphia. It's probably the best conference I've ever been to in terms of just seeing the technologies coming out and being able to incorporate STEM type activities into classrooms and things like that. So, they were able to
the science curriculum completely changing too, I'm sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So, we do get out to see what's going on out in other places. We belong to groups where they're constantly sharing ideas with one another. And then at the teacher level too, I know Joe is associated with a lot of different memberships, Joe McClellan, who's doing the STEM particularly. So, absolutely. We're always looking and listening to see what we can do better. And we did go out, even before we started that, we didn't pretend to know what we were doing. And so we'd spent a lot of time going out to other districts like Bradford. We went down to Pittsburgh. We were all over. So whether it was the redesign of the career center, we were at AC Beatty, I believe Beatty down in Cranberry. We went to Butler Career Center, went to several career centers just to see the programming and how they were doing it before we renovated our building to see if there was something we needed to tweak. We went to Bethel Park before we did a lot of the building renovations. We went out to see probably 2 or 3 buildings, and we took board members with us so they could see. So we're absolutely out and about and trying to see what other people are doing. And then I'm with superintendents every month, so we're constantly talking about those same types of things.
So obviously, population decline notwithstanding, what are some of the biggest challenges that you kind of see for the district coming up currently or coming up down the road that you need to start preparing for and figuring out ways to overcome those?
Well, so the population shift is definitely probably the biggest one, because when you look at it from a historical perspective, having been a principal at Eisenhower 20 years ago, or assistant principal 20 years ago, and then moving, 6 years later, sitting in the principal seat, or at Beatty, or, I taught at Warren High and watched the courses that we were able to offer the kids back then compared to now, and to see the decline in what we're able to offer because we just don't have the population to do it. That's really tough to watch. And so when I was sitting at Eisenhower 15 years ago, watching my master board just get smaller and smaller and smaller, at one time, Eisenhower, I think, when I got there, they had more AP classes than Warren did. And now I don't know, they only have 2. So that has had a tremendous impact on the opportunities that we can offer students. And so that's probably the hardest one to combat. And so that's why you hear a lot of discussion coming up just in terms of what do we need to do, because it was really about academics. And now we're also in a situation coming out of COVID and a lot of the ESSER funding, and now that's become financial as well.
Right.
So there's two facets to that. So that's a tough one. Shifting, you mentioned like science curriculum. A shift in those standards is a big process. Whether we change curriculum at the elementary level for literacy, that takes years to master. It takes a long time for the teachers to really appropriately invest in that and deploy it within the classroom. So it takes a lot of time, a lot of professional development, and then a lot of supervision over consistency to make sure everybody's doing it with fidelity. So then you can track it with data.
Yeah.
So you're talking about years in the making for something like that. So yeah, we've got a lot coming up just that we have to stay focused on within the classrooms alone. The other one is just the shortage of teachers.
Yeah.
We're really rolling out this year. There are several things that I was really focused on coming into this position. One of them was to bring back our education reform plans, because I thought we'd started that in 2013 at the high school level. By the time we were done in 2018, we had really driven it down into K to 12. Yeah. And so bringing that back is the basis and the foundation for what we're trying to accomplish, because we have to recognize the areas that we need to improve, and we have to recognize the areas that we need additional resources. So getting the administrators and teachers back in to go through that process without making it too cumbersome.
Right.
And so that was one, because I think the board goals really should bank off of that, or they should work in conjunction.
Yeah.
They should be streamlined. The other thing too, for me, was just really getting back to basics. And I've said this, and they're probably tired of hearing me say that phrase, but I want to get back to basics. Yeah. I want to get back to what we're trying to do with kids, and the focus in the classroom on education, and really trying to eliminate as many of the distractions as possible. So I don't want new initiatives coming in. I don't want to burden people with new things. There's no reason to do that. We need to get back to what we need to do well, and just keep our focus on that.
And we talk about distractions in the classroom, and COVID obviously was just a major distraction for everybody, right? And does it seem, now that we're essentially going to be entering kind of the third year of post-COVID, I guess, for lack of a better word, but to where there's not those constant we've got a teacher out, or a bunch of students out because they tested positive or whatever.
Yeah.
Does it seem like things are kind of getting back to where they were pre-COVID?
Yeah, I don't think we had too much difficulty getting out of that, just because the nature of the area that we live in. We didn't. I think this area accepted COVID a little bit different than probably urban areas. And so I think a lot of people had no issue when we said, look, if you test positive, you can choose to isolate yourself, but you don't have to. I think once we kind of came out with those parameters, that changed the direction of how people thought about it. And we've kind of just rolled since then. I mean, it doesn't matter if teachers are out, we're always struggling. And our substitute services have done a really remarkable job over the past year at increasing the number of subs that we have. But at the same time, we've just had a lot of people out, and it's hard to cover. Yeah. So we've had difficulties in just trying to maintain the sub level. And that's a whole nother subject in itself, just because you have to have a bachelor's degree to sub.
Yeah.
In our area, the people that have bachelor's degrees in our area, it's limited, number one. And then the majority are already working.
Right. Yeah.
Or they're retired and don't want to work, right. Which I don't blame them.
Yeah, they put their time in. Right?
So it really leaves us a small pool of people to choose from to be able to bring in as subs.
And so what are some things, you mentioned just the teachers, and the data's been out there and been talked about, where we're seeing more emergency certified teachers than, people going through, the traditional college path. But so what are some things that we have to do as a district to make Warren County School District more appealing to some of those kids that are just coming out now, because that's going to be your base, right? I mean, and that's kind of goes hand in hand with population decline, right? Because now you're attracting younger people that hopefully you convince to stay, and then they have families and kids.
So I've said all along, to me, I'm not from this area. I moved here. My wife graduated from this area. I love it here. It's like Warren County, if you're an outdoors person, it's a playground. Right. And it has everything really you could possibly imagine. If you like to hunt, fish, kayak, hike, mountain bike.
Shout out Trail of the Year, River of the Year this year. So, I mean,
that's right.
Obviously, it's not just things that we think are great to have, but,
that's right.
Other people throughout the state.
Yeah.
agree.
So I think along with some of the projects going on like Warren Works, I think we need to market ourselves. I think it was last year, year before, I worked with John Papalay at the chamber. He sent me booklets on Warren County. I incorporated that in packets that we sent to every university, I think 80 plus universities throughout the state and local areas, regional areas that we could share with, to please share with students. This is Warren County. This is what we can offer. This is what we do. And just trying to get people to come here and want to be in this area. I mean, that's what we really want. Yeah. We want somebody that wants to be here and stay here. So just really marketing ourselves.
Yeah. And so, I mean, you mentioned Warren Works a couple of times, and how beneficial do you think it could be for the district now that they've hired a marketing director who is a graduate of the Warren County School District? Jenny and I graduated together longer ago than
I won't ask.
But I mean, to say, look at, hey, this is what a graduate of the Warren County School District, can lead you to, and what they're capable of. And as somebody who went away to college and spent some time away and then came back, right? Like, hey, look, obviously this is an area that's got appeal, and, our graduates go on and they do great things and they still want to live here.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of possibilities for marketing. I think there's a lot of things that we can do to get ourselves out there. I think there's a lot of things we can do to take advantage of the opportunities we have with the river, with some of the other things that we have to begin to develop business. I mean, that helps everybody. Right. So if you can bring people in from a business standpoint, then there's a tax base that is impacted by that. Right. There's population change that's impacted by that. We don't see families like we did 20 years ago coming into local businesses, bringing their kids and moving into the area. So bringing those companies in and really building up the area and developing it appropriately, I think is going to be a big deal for everybody. So for us, it's not only from a population standpoint and the types of kids we could be bringing into the county, but also from a tax base and so many other things.
And so with that, they're rapidly coming to the end of the countywide reassessment, and how much of a benefit can that be? I mean, this is something we've heard the districts talked about needing to have been done for a long time.
Yeah, I don't know the impact yet. That's one I'm going to have to work with Mr. Grush on, but I don't know, because I don't see the overall tax base changing. I think it's really to make it, my understanding of it is to make it equitable. And so in that case, you may see some go up, some go down. But in the end, I don't know that you're going to see a massive increase in the tax base. I think you're going to see it more equitable. But yeah, so I don't necessarily know exactly what the impact's going to be.
Well, and my understanding is it will probably eliminate some of those appeals that we see on a yearly basis.
That would be tremendous. Right. That part would be tremendous, because that the appeals alone cause a massive reduction in the amount of revenue that we're able to bring in through local taxes. Yeah. And I've been out looking at some of the other areas around us, and we try and align ourselves to school districts similar to us. Right. So when you look at the square miles of Warren County School District, which is a rarity in Pennsylvania, not so much in other states, but in Pennsylvania for sure. And so when you look at like Keystone, it's very similar to us in terms of the size, geography, not necessarily the building makeup, but yet they're seeing a $7 million difference in local revenue from taxes. Something's going on there. Right. That there's a tremendous difference in what they're able to accomplish from a local revenue standpoint. So our goal is not to burden the taxpayers. Right. Yeah. Our goal is to be financially responsible and really provide a budget that isn't taxing the tax base. So we've got some work to do coming out of ESSER, where we've got to get the budget in a manageable situation.
And so kind of last thing here before we wrap up, I don't want to interrupt your summertime too much.
No, that's okay. I got yard work to do. Yeah. I'm not anxious to get there and do it, believe me.
But so, and I asked Amy this. She was on a couple of weeks before she left, and I asked her the same question. But so for you, money is no object. What would be your kind of utopian vision for the district going forward, as far as how it would operate and what kind of opportunities it would be able to provide for our students?
Boy, you're just trying to get me to step in it. Boy, talk about putting a bullseye on me. So again, I'm going to go back to the high school. I'm going to talk about the high school because I think we do good things at our elementary, whether we're 10 elementaries, 6 elementaries, 4 elementaries, whatever it may be. I think we're in a very responsible situation right now with elementary, and even up to middle potentially. High school, what I want is an opportunity for kids to get whatever they want in our curriculum, and to offer them the most out of our curriculum that we can possibly get. So I want kids to be able to go as high as they possibly want, take as many courses they want, whether it's APs, honors, applied, utilize the career center. That's all I want. And however we do that, and I know the configuration is going to be talked about, however we can accomplish that, that's what I want. And I said, it's not for me. I can make recommendations all day long, but until people accept in the community how that needs to look in order to accomplish that, because I think that's what's best for kids. I think it provides opportunities. That's all I want for kids. And it's about choices, and to give them as many choices and opportunities we can possibly do. So however that needs to look, I'm okay with it. I just want to be able to accomplish that goal. That's what I want.
Opportunity. And
I want every kid to be able to look at a board and say, I can take all these different classes during this period and I have choice. When I look at the board and I say, well, I can't take that, or I've already taken that, so my choice is study hall. That's not much of a choice. So I just want kids to have the appropriate choices and as much opportunity as they can possibly get. That's all.
I mean, it for a long while was that way. I mean, I went through my entire 4 years of high school, and I think I had study hall for like a semester.
Absolutely.
But that was my choice, because I did things like concert band.
That's right.
And we had opportunities like U.S. military history was a course that was available, and
and you didn't by taking concert band, you didn't lose classes that you didn't get to take because you were taking concert band. And that's what's happening now. Is a kid has to make a choice. If I want to take concert band, then I don't get to take these classes, and that's what I'm fearful of. I don't want to see that for kids. You shouldn't have to make that choice. And we see a decline in some of our numbers as a result of that. So whether it's concert band, you see a decline in numbers. Well, that's some of that is because kids can't take both, and so they're choosing the other. And some kids will choose that, and we see a decline in whatever else is offered. So, I just don't want to put them in a position. It's not a fair position for kids to be in to make that choice. So I just want them to be able to have appropriate choices that are where they're not having to make a decision of, I'm either going to do this or this, but I can't do both.
Well, and
There's no reason for that academically.
Perfect example. My oldest is going into 6th grade, and she brought something home that was, it was choir and something else, and I can't. The other option is escaping me at the moment. But and she loves to sing, and so I'm like, okay, well, this is going to be a no-brainer what she wants to do, but I got to look at, is this going to take away something else that she really needs? To give her something that she wants to do and would enjoy, because that's part of, you talk about mastering learning and stuff. And part of that is there has to be a desire to do that. And if you're constantly doing things like, I really don't like this. It makes it hard for that internal desire to be there.
Well, so I'll give you a great example of that. When we moved to the middle level schedule of Beatty in the mid 2000s, that was a remedy to get out of the PSSA situation that we were in. And I'm not even going to talk about that. It's a whole nother topic, because, that was a joke. Our scores were fantastic, but our scores skyrocketed after making the changes, but that was at a detriment to specials. But then they decided to roll that out district wide. And so that had an impact district wide on specials. And so kids could choose one or the other. And so put them in a little bit of a situation there. So again, we're going back to an 8-period day this year, which I think is fantastic, only because we went to the 7-period day for a rationale. I didn't see the benefit that we thought we were going to get out of it. So we're going to an 8-period day because we need to provide flexibility within our schedules. And so that hopefully will help those kids to make some of those decisions a little bit easier. and not miss things.
Yeah, and that was, it's funny because my kids are constantly my two youngest are at Wake, and they're constantly, well, when you were at Wake, what was it like up there? And I'm like, well, it didn't exist when I was here, right? I went to Jefferson and Scandia, man. Like, come on,
Much different.
Yeah, a little way different being in Scandia than versus Wake, but so my oldest was in 5th grade this year, and she was down at Beatty, and I had an opportunity to just be in the building a couple of times, and I mentioned to her, like, oh, hey, this just looks different than it did, when I was here, and obviously there's been updates and things like that, because that was a long time ago, but she would have, well, what was your schedule like, and how did things work, and so I was kind of explaining to her, like, okay, well, we'd come in, we'd have homeroom, and 5th and 6th grade, you kind of went as a class, right, from, and you were kind of isolated in your, there was like a 5th grade hallway, 6th grade hallway, not a lot of overlap. And I said, but when you get into like 7th grade, then you can start picking, some things that you want to do. And for me, I did concert band, and that was always, when I was in Beatty, that was always an 8th period. I mean, that's just when it was, for 5th and 6th graders. And then you'd have 7th grade concert band would be one period, and choir would be a different period, and orchestra was something else entirely, but you could do all of that. And now it's like you can't hardly even do one, with the way things are scheduled, and lack of options, and seemingly lack of interest, and and it's like you said, how do we kind of bring back so that kids have those, not only have those options, but also have the desire and the want to take advantage of
it. Part of that is the state putting us in a position where we have to meet standards, and our focus has to be on reading, writing, and math, science. So that's not a bad thing, but it's at a point where, again, we have to make a decision at some time where, is this what we want for our kids in Warren County? What do we want for our kids in Warren County? And if that means that maybe our scores aren't as high as somebody else because we're offering those opportunities and we're not doing double periods of math or whatever it may be, then so be it. And I'm okay with that. We need to do the best we can do with kids, but we also need to understand children and put them in a good position to be successful and have great opportunities. So, sometimes that means that we're gonna have to go against the grain, and I'm okay with, if we decide to make that decision. It's not going to be me making that decision. It's going to be a group of knowledgeable people that are going to come together and make that decision. So I'll support it all day long if that's what we decide. It is tough. I laugh because I went to a school north of Pittsburgh, and unfortunately our elementaries were deteriorating at that time. And so in 4th grade, we all got put together in one central school, kind of like Wake. The same situation occurred with them. And my closest friends came from other schools. I only have two of my closest friends were I would have stayed with in that area, but the rest of my friends came from those other areas, and I didn't know them until we came together. We were, it was, the size of Eisenhower. So you had K to 6 and then 7 to 12. So, there are opportunities for kids out there. We just need to harness that and come together and accept what that might look like, whatever that may be.
Well, it's interesting because it seems like the more we focus on, test scores and, we're behind in math and we're behind in science, it's like we forget that, things like art and music are ways to show kids the practical applications of, things that they're learning in math and science, and understanding how, this is how, why this, musical composition works the way it does, or how these colors come together to form, this painting or whatever it is. And it seems like we've kind of lost sight of the value of how the arts in particular can apply that practical application of what you're learning in an academic setting.
I think we've become saturated. And what I mean by that is, and I'm not picking on arts, but STEM became STEAM because you couldn't not include art.
Yeah.
So everybody wants to be included.
Right.
And so everybody that comes out of an area feels that their area is vital and important to kids. And so we need to do something in that area. Yeah. So by the time we try and capture all those areas, there's only so much time in a day.
Right.
So by the time you do your language arts, your reading, your writing, or reading, math, social studies, science, English, whatever all those are, and then you try and throw in all of the STEAM components, and it just becomes the point where, okay, what do we have to give up in order to continue to do this? So that's the hard part. Those are the conversations that are tricky that we need to have. We're bringing back a fifth special this year for elementary, which I think is tremendous. We haven't had a fifth special in forever. And so we're going to bring that back. I think that's going to be great for kids. So I think we're trying to do some really good things. And like I said, we're going to go through the ed reform process. And I think that'll hash out some of the other areas that we need to really focus on. In our last one, like I said, career planning was a big one. Mental health was huge. And since that time, we've been able to bring in social workers and do some different things. The other part that really makes it tough on staff is the state mandates.
Right. Yeah.
Trying to accomplish. You asked about professional development. Yeah. Holy cow! If we just did state requirements, we would eat up all of our professional development. So we've been able to accomplish some things working with the bargaining unit to be able to do some of that outside so that we can focus on professional development during the day, and then really doing good professional development that's going to impact the classroom. Yeah. And that's what we want to focus on.
All right. Well, you guys are, you're probably going to have some tough conversations coming up over the next couple of months. I'm sure as next 4 or 5 board meetings will be a little interesting, I'm sure, as we go through that process of how do we best provide education for our students, again. And
we're trying to gear up and provide as much information as we can for the board to make good decisions. So we'll start on the 29th, and we have a very short window between the committee meeting and the board meeting this month. So and especially you're going from the 29th to the 5th, and that's Fair Week. So that's a whole nother element of this county. God bless the participation in the county fair. You don't want to do anything during that week other than the fair. So I should be out there. I got to reach back out to them and figure out when I'm going to volunteer, but I'll be volunteering out the fair at some point.
You got to take the board meeting on location, right? You get out to the fairgrounds.
You
get lots of participation.
I'd be very interested where they would put us.
Well, you'll be in the pavilion, and you'll just go right after they crown the fair queen. Boom, start that board meeting.
I'd rather be over with the animals. Put me over there. I'm happy when I'm over with the animals. That's I go. I love the sausage sandwiches. Yeah, I'm all about that, and food at the fair, and then working my way over to the animals. I'm all about it. Yeah. So I'm excited this year. We're ready to roll. I think the administrative team, Dr. Mead, Mr. Meinweiser, Lynn Schultz, we just brought Mrs. Ken up. We've had a lot of administrative changes. We've had some staff changes, but we're really excited. Our administrative team is gearing up and ready to go. We've had some really, really good meetings. I've been out in the community talking to different people, and the level of support from the community is tremendous. So we're trying to, capture that as well. Yeah. I think we're ready to go and excited about this coming school year.
Well, and this is kind of your rookie season, as it were. I mean, your first full school year as superintendent, and
hey, if I can get through the first week of transportation, that'll be the tell right there. If we can get through that, then we'll be okay. All right. That's the toughest one is the first day of transportation. Somebody's got to be in the buildings and at the bus garage because somebody inevitably will miss their stop, fall asleep, miss a bus.
My youngest fell asleep on the bus for state kindergarten, so I get it. It's
it happens.
Thankfully, her sisters were on the bus with her, and we were able to wake her up before she, ended up out in Pittsfield somewhere. But so that it happens.
It is. Those first days are tough, and kids are tired.
Yeah, well, for kindergartners especially, it's for a lot of them, it's their first time going to school for a full day, and you get on that bus and you're rocking a little bit, and hey, it's nap time, right?
That's right.
Probably for superintendents too, you get in your office at the end of the first day and just crash out a little bit.
Yeah, it's definitely the first week. There's certain times like first week of school, PSSAs. You're putting miles on. The principals will put miles on their feet during PSSAs, just running around the building. So there are certain times where definitely, I think at the end of the day, you're just like, whew, yeah, thank goodness.
All right. Well, we won't take up any more of your time, Gary. Thank you so much for stopping with us.
Thank you. I
and
appreciate
chatting, and we're looking forward to what your first year at the helm has in store. First of many, I assume will be here. And again, folks, can't stress this enough. Get involved. Get out to the board meetings. Even sometimes during Fair Week, but be involved and understand. You can't just show up when it's decision time. You got to be maybe not every meeting, but regularly involved so that you know what's going on and the basis behind a lot of the decisions that are made. They start 6 months out from before they actually put something to a vote.
Stay out of the rumor mill. That's what I always say. Stay out of the rumor mill. Actually come and look at the data. I'm happy to provide as much data as anyone wants to look at. But look at good data, solid data to make good decisions and not the rumor mill that flies around oftentimes.
And if you can't get to a meeting, you can head to yourdailylocal.com, get full recaps of every board meeting that will keep you out of the rumor mill. So, Gary Weber, again, Warren County School District Superintendent, thank you so much for taking some time with us. That'll wrap it up for this week's episode of Coffee and a Conversation. This is Brian Hagberg on Your Daily Local saying thank you so much for watching and enjoy your weekend.
If you're ready to buy or sell your home, then stop in at 4234 Market Street to let one of the agents at Howard Hanna Professionals help. Our friendly and knowledgeable agents can help you find the key to your dream home. Looking for a new career? Howard Hanna Professionals can help there too. Howard Hanna Professionals will assist new and experienced agents with the startup fees for an exciting career in real estate. Call Katrina Laurie at 814-726-2000 for more information.
Here at Casella, we make temporary dumpster rental easy, offering services that are perfect for construction, remodeling, special events, or other short-term projects. Casella dumpsters are available in a wide range of sizes to fit any job. Our dedicated customer service team will help you choose the right size container and service level for your project and schedule hassle-free removal based on your specific needs. The right size dumpster, when you want it, where you want it, removed when you say so.